Hey, Chris Jeub, the Glamping Guy here with podcast number 1 of my Glamping Guy podcast, releasing here on September 2nd, 2024. In this very first episode, I'll be sharing with you my vision for this podcast, as well as reveal some names of the first guests, plus share with you my personal story of owning and operating my safe, legal, and profitable glamping operation here on my private property. Properties, that is. I actually own more than one property, and I'm growing. Now, I am one of the select few landowners out there who discovered gold on their private property, almost by mistake, and got swept up in, dare I say, a movement of glamping operations. It's literally sweeping the world. If you've been watching my YouTube videos or have taken some of my online courses, you know that I've been hinting at the idea of the new rich. And there's a seismic shift of land ownership and land development law that's going on right now in the country and abroad, that you, if you so choose, can be a part of. I'm doing it. The guests I invite on this podcast are doing it. And you may be doing it or really close to taking the first steps to building a safe, legal, and profitable accommodation on your private property. And Glamping Guy is here to show you the way. The Glamping Guy podcast is launching its first episodes, and I'm calling it the Glamping Masters Series, meaning I will be interviewing and gleaning from the wisdom of folks who are walking the walk, not just talking the talk. Now, there are a lot of vendors and outdoorsman types and people into the glamping or outdoor hospitality space with a lot of knowledge in the industry, and we can definitely glean a lot from them. But this series is about those people who are actually running glamping operations, or at least very close to doing so on their private property. My first interviewee, and this will get a little weird, but go with me here, is Chris Jeub, owner of Monument Glamping. Now, I'm Chris Jeub, the Glamping Guy, helping guide you as a landowner to do that which Chris Jeub of Monument Glamping is already doing. Follow me here. This will probably be the strangest interview you'll ever see online, but I bet later episodes will do what you'd expect of one person interviewing another person, not one person interviewing himself. And stick with me to the end where I'll reveal who I'm going to be interviewing first, outside of myself. So without further ado, help me welcome to the show Chris Jeub of Monument Glamping. Well, hey Chris, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
You are the first podcast guest that I have on the show. You own and operate Monument Glamping in Monument, Colorado. And I've got a bigger purpose for the reason I'm doing it this way, is that I am modeling for other glamping operators how I would like to have them on this podcast. Because looking back, I've been at this for about 5 years. I don't know how, we'll get to your story in a little bit, but I've been at this for about 5 years. And honestly, I wish I had this podcast 5 years ago when I first started. So it's a way of just modeling other people and how they're doing it, how they're active in this wonderful world of glamping, and seeing what you know and knowing what you know, gleaning from your wisdom. So are you up for answering these questions that I've got for you and every other glamper out there?
Sure. Fire away. Let's do it.
All right. Thanks. First of all, who are you?
Oh, thank you, Chris. My story started in 2019 when my wife and I remodeled our house. We kind of live in a fixer-upper. We live in a beautiful piece of land, by the way. We have a 6.5 acre piece of property on Monument Creek in our backyard. We moved here in 2000, so we've been here for 24 years. We know our neighbors well. We know our community well. I was a teacher at a local school at the time when I got into glamping. In fact, I was a teacher at a charter school, not really making a lot of money, but we chose to use some of our summer to remodel our bedroom. And we, instead of living in a living room for a month, we decided to I erected my hunting tent in my backyard. Literally built a platform. Obviously I've got my bow and my antlers back here. It looks like they're popping out of my head. But I erected my hunting tent in my backyard. Moved our master bedroom outdoors. Loved it. It was so much fun. And we and at the end of the time, we decided to throw it up on Airbnb to see what would happen. We booked out the rest of the summer.
Whoa, that's awesome!
It was great. We made $1,800 off of my hunting gear. I thought I made off like a bandit. The next summer was the COVID year. This was 2020, and we decided to put up a second tent. and then we made $18,000. That was saying something. Now it became a serious side hustle that was picking up steam, and that every teacher kind of has their side hustle to them to kind of satisfy their teaching habit. And I went ahead and did the glamping operation that summer. The next summer we cleared $90,000, but we were taking things seriously in that we partnered with one of my neighbors. We had 3 tents by then. We did 3 container homes. My son was building container homes at the time. 2021 was an excellent year. However, we started getting into trouble, and that was when we started we had a neighbor who was actually giving us a hard time about it, and yeah, we got into trouble with the county and with the health department. She was calling every entity under the sun, the building department, the health department, the planning department. The planning department was really what put the kibosh on what I was doing, or forced us to get what was called a special use permit. And I had to educate myself a lot in that about it was about a year process of getting my first special use permit, and I did get it. I got my special use permit in 2022 to allow me to have 8 units on my property, and I've been growing ever since. So yeah, I've been growing ever since. It has been now I clear about $250,000 in gross rents. I kind of took a step back this last year because I had to get a modification to my first special use permit, as well as get a special use permit for my second property, which is on the other side of town. So it's been a big year of development. So I probably won't clear $250,000 this year, but maybe 200,000. And I'm looking at a third property. So there's all sorts of things going on in the glamping world of Monument Glamping.
Wow, that's a great story, Chris. Now the next one is really asking about your mastery in the glamping industry, because you've taken some leadership in the glamping industry, talking to other glampers and people who are interested in getting involved in glamping. But think about what sets your glamping operation apart from others. In other words, what unique approaches or philosophies do you bring to the industry?
Yeah, what unique philosophies I have. I do speak against what I call analysis paralysis. I do, but I get it. Where there's a hesitation to move forward in something as exciting as glamping is. There's a time where you study and analyze, and to death. I mean, there might be some of your listeners right now. They've been waiting to pull the trigger on their glamping operation for like ever, because there's always something more to learn. What you have to understand is that you will learn as you go. I'm a big proponent of what you're doing here, Chris, with the whole modeling concept, where you're interviewing me because I'm actually doing glamping, and I hope your listeners actually learn from me. I know it's kind of a brain warp seeing it done this way for the very first podcast, but the idea is that just be the fly on the wall in my world. Glamping is such an innovative and dynamic world that's always changing. I mean, the things I did 3-4 years ago are nowhere near what I'm doing now. And why is that? Well, because I'm learning as I go, and that's the nature of the program. So that's one philosophy I have, is just to not be afraid to take that first step into the unknown and actually do the work. If you analyze it too much and wait for perfection, and that time will never come. You just really need to kind of pound the stake in the ground, literally and metaphorically, and get your first tent up. Another thing that kind of sets me apart from other glamping operators that might be out there is that I really do believe in not public, but private land ownership. I call it the Ray Kroc model. I don't know if you know who Ray Kroc is, but Ray Kroc is the founder of McDonald's, and most people think it's the McDonald's brothers who did it, but they were hamburger guys. The person who actually turned McDonald's into what it is today is Ray Kroc, and he was the one who franchised the McDonald's guys. And he was famous as saying, people would ask him what kind of business he's in, or he would ask people, what kind of business do you think I'm in? And they would say, well, you're in the hamburger business. He goes, no, I'm in the real estate business. And that's honestly what glamping operators should think. They should put that cap on. This is called my MOGLA hat, my Monument Glamping hat. I'm actually into running and operating private property. And there's all sorts of ways to do it. I became very educated in my early years on understanding what land use jurisdiction is, land use law, things that are changing in today's world. Honestly, I mean, the trend is. I don't want to bore your listeners here, but I think it's quite fascinating. I've got some videos online about this, but the idea is of the land use law is in a seismic shift right now. It's not what used to be land use law that kind of protected homeowners by other homeowners. Is now changing to where homeowners are building assets. The wonderful world of short-term rentals have kind of changed all that. It's kind of uprooted all of it. The Airbnb guys, they just now you can go customer to customer when it comes to rentals. You don't have to be a rich fat cat a landlord who's raising rents and making people live in their apartments. You can be a landowner. You can be the average guy who owns a piece of property, and you can put up an ADU in your backyard, and you could put up some tents and actually rent them out. You can run a glamping operation. I have a recreation camp permit, and you could do something fun on the beautiful property that you own or you've inherited, you have in the family or something like that. That's really how I'm different, is that it's about land ownership. There are glamping operators who are, and I love them too. I loved going to see Under Canvas up in the Black Hills and stuff. They run a great ship, but they're renting government land to run their operation. I'm really more for the landowner, the person who has the gift of property and land, to have a house. They could actually do this on their property. That's the kind of person that I'm really willing to help. And I want to model for them how I'm doing it. I think there's a lot to glean from each other and to learn from each other, and that's another way I differentiate myself from other glamping operators out there.
It's very interesting. Is there anything else that differentiates yourself from other glamping hosts?
Yeah, I would say I'd say the concept of modeling. I mentioned earlier that I was a teacher, and there's actually kind of a controversial pedagogical method in English teaching. I was an English teacher, and it's called modeling. The idea, actually, some people in teaching think it's like teaching kids to plagiarize or cheat, and I say it's because it works so well. It's when I'm teaching a writing concept to my English students, I would write up on the board, say, hey, do exactly what I'm doing, write exactly what I'm writing down. And I would write it down, or I'd give them an assignment like that to teach this concept. And the kids would take it, and there would be creative ways to change it up to make it their own. But the learning it just explodes. And I'm doing the same thing with the glamping world, is that I'm modeling for other glamping owners how to do glamping my way, and how I'm doing it. I make the mistakes right in front of them and things like that. And I don't take offense at all when another glamping operator might copy something I do, because I know they're going to modify it, they're going to make it their own. But I will learn also from them. I mean, in a strange kind of way, that's really what we're doing right now, right, Chris?
We are modeling for future potential guests on this podcast how to interact and how we want to, or I want to interview them. This is pretty deep.
And the thing is that all of our glamping operations are going to get better. It's going to be really awesome. And that's that's how some glamping operators might get proprietary with their ideas and not like the competition that exists. I'm kind of the opposite. I'm an open book, and I help people with their glamping operations.
Well, we're really rolling on this question. Give me one more. One more differentiation you have that other glamping operators don't have?
I don't know. There's probably lots of things I could go down a whole list of things how I'm different from other glamping operators. But here, this one I think has done me very well. We have a saying. My wife and I run the place, and we do it with our kids, our family. That's actually one thing I differentiate myself. So I have got a lot of children. I have 16 children. I don't know if you know that, but 16 children. I only have 5 left at home, but we're all cleaners. We're all taking care of guests. People check in. We say hi. We run the propane tanks down to them and stuff like that. But one of the philosophies that I have that I think is different from pretty much the short-term rental guru, the person out there who's doing a short-term rental service, is that we treat every guest like we would like to be treated if we were traveling. That has kept us on the straight and narrow whenever something becomes dicey. I mean, we do bring strangers onto our property. We've had thousands of people stay on our property, and we've had mostly, like 99% of the time, just great experiences. But every once in a while, someone tries to get a little crazy, or and things get uncomfortable, or they ask for a refund, and they complain about a spider they had to smush, so they want all their money back. Those kinds of things happen, and they come to the surface. We always default to that. You know what? Yeah, if we were traveling cross country and all of a sudden there's a blizzard and I'm in this bell tent, I would expect my money back. I don't stiff it to the customer, and that's the kind of thing we do. So we treat customers the way we would like to be treated.
16 children? That's nuts. What are you, crazy?
I know. Well, you know what? We're all kind of in a crazy industry, aren't we? It takes almost to start off. This is true. This is true. Think about it. Think about it. Every crazy, you almost have to be kind of off your knocker to start anything new and innovative. It's no surprise that like Elon Musk has Asperger's. He's kind of off the spectrum a little bit. But look what he's done. He's revolutionized electric cars, and I think he is going to get to Mars before he dies. That's the kind of guy he is. My point is that please don't write off my craziness. Yes, I have 16 children, but I tell you, I am more blessed than you would imagine. If you actually ever stay at my place and meet some of my children, or do a wine tasting with us. Wine tastings is one of the funnest things we do on our property, in that we make our own homemade wine, and we will sit on the deck and get to know people, and just have a good time conversing, and you get to know us. You get to know us and our family. I actually have wine labels that has a picture of our family on it, and it's wonderful. So, but anyway, back to what I was saying about glamping. Honestly, I talk to county planners and they look at you like you got 3 heads. I mean, they really, you're crazy. You put a tent up in your backyard and you're renting it out. But I have to ask myself, well, why not? Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but think about it for a little bit. And I do the same thing with, like maybe young couples or something. At least I could say this about myself, is that when Wendy and I were in our childbearing years, we started thinking, we love children, or pretty good parents. We have the means to do this. Why not have another child? And we did that 16 times. and I can't say I regret the craziness of my life. I mean, really. Do you?
Well, I don't know. Maybe a little. Maybe.
I mean, think about that. Think about that. Probably the most joy in your life. I would challenge this to anybody, any of your listeners. Think about the thing that has brought you the most joy is probably the craziest things you've ever done. Like you jumping out of an airplane. I've never done that before, but I can imagine. I could look back at my life going, yeah, I jumped out of an airplane in a parachute. That was crazy. That was nuts. Yeah, but it probably brought you extreme exhilaration, and that's the same thing with having children, with any kind of crazy sport or activity you get into, or I would say the same thing with business. Quitting that 9 to 5, that you've hated for years, and actually opening up your land to strangers, it's not that bad. And then you find out that when you do enter the crazy is not that bad. It actually is something that, well, like I said, it brings great joy and satisfaction. And I bet you I'm going to be on my deathbed someday thinking I sure am glad I did not try to keep up with the neighbors. I did something different and crazy and wild and fun. There's nothing crazier and more fun and wild than being out in the wild. And that's what glamping is. And I encourage landowners to kind of keep that perspective and follow you, the glamping guy, Chris. I mean, you're walking the walk and living the dream. So,
Wow, thanks. That's interesting how you are differentiating yourself from others. I would like to hear more about a project example. Identify a standout project or initiative from your glamping operation, and be ready to, and please explain what made it special or what impact it had.
yeah, look at my project I have right now. I mentioned earlier, I pretty much took a step back to take 2 steps forward this year, meaning we went from 8 to 12 units permitted on this property, but I still only have 8 units operating. And on my other property, I have 24 permitted properties with nothing operating. So honestly, I'm living off of 8 units right now with the permits for 36. I've got a lot to do. I've got some building to do. That's a project that I'm working on right now. It's also coming down to the end. I mean, it's September. September, October are still very good months, but we start to take things down in November, and come Thanksgiving is our real last bang, and then we close some tents up and stuff for the winter, just too cold. So that's on my mind too, is getting ready for the winter months.
Well, we've heard a lot about you and your past, your story, and the projects you've done. But think about what your current priorities or projects are.
I'm also going to the Glamping Show USA in October 1st and 2nd. I really encourage people to go to that show. There's really there's two expos in the world that's specifically tailored to glamping. Now, there's all sorts of stuff about hospitality and hotels and campgrounds and things like that are out there. But a trade show specifically for glamping itself, there's one in the UK and there's one here, and it just happens to be an hour away from Monument Glamping. So I'm really set and loaded to take part in that. I'm speaking on the first day, on the Tuesday, the 1st. So I'll be giving a presentation to glampers there, and to other landowners, helping them build safe, legal, and profitable glamping operations on their private property.
Now, consider the lessons you've learned over the years. You said you've been at this for 5 years now, looking forward to getting into your 6th. What wisdom would have been valuable to you when you first started in the glamping business?
Yeah, the reflective. Oh, you're asking a deep question here, Chris. I would say follow people who are doing what you want to do. If that be me, if that be you, the listener who is like, man, I get it. I want to do what Chris and Chris are doing, but what are my first steps? What do I need to do to make that happen? That's really what I encourage young glampers to do, is to latch on to that person who has walked that walk, who has been down the road before. And you know what? And the people who are in the industry know what I mean. It's a very young industry when you think about it. Now, this isn't like the hotel industry that's been around for 100 years, or or hospitality that's been around forever. I mean, there's industries out there. Glamping is so brand new that it's a wide blue ocean territory. There's not a lot of competition going on. I mean, and the market is raw for it. It really wants it. It wants to do there's a lot of people who want to stay on your property. So you won't be hard up for business. No one's going to be taking their business away. In fact, I wouldn't mind if another glamping operation popped up in the Colorado Springs area. I would welcome it. There's plenty of business to go around. In fact, I do talk to some people who want to do what I'm doing. I mean, it's hard work. There's dedication to it. You really have to. You have to zero in on it and learn it and do it. But I would say it's really fun. It's really fun. My wife and I discovered something, going way back to our story at the beginning. We not only discovered that we were making money on it and actually making a nice business and a nice living off of it, we actually fell in love with hospitality. We love welcoming people to our property. It's not something we complain about. I do know people who, I'm thinking of one person who got into glamping, or a form of glamping. I found out he didn't really like it. It's just, he was kind of crabby and grumpy and would badmouth his guests and stuff like that, get mad at them and stuff. And that's not us. We aren't those kinds of guests. We really enjoy getting them, and then we give them their space. They are going to. We don't get in there. We're not obnoxious, but we love the opportunities of just sitting on the deck and talking. And if they're vacationers and they're traveling through the area, we like to recommend all the nice places to go to, or the hiking trails. We've got a couple secrets that we like to give out. Or if they're staycationers, they're just busting out of an apartment in Denver or Colorado Springs, just getting out of the city. We love them too, and we love getting to know them and just welcoming them to our beautiful property. We've been really richly blessed, I believe, from God on this beautiful property, with the creek and fishing and wading through it, and the ducks and the geese flying over all the time. It's just wonderful. We have a couple of fawns that were birthed about a month ago that walk through the property all the time, and the guests have really been gawking over it and taking all sorts of awesome pictures. These are magical moments, and I don't want to hoard it all to myself. Honestly, I don't want to be selfish about my property. I want to share it. So this is a way of doing it, is through glamping. And I love making money off of what I love to do. so that's another reason that I love glamping.
That was great, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Glamping Guy podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. This was fun. I appreciate this.
Maybe we'll do a follow-up with you in a year or two and see how your glamping operation has grown since now.
Yeah, I really enjoy doing this. It's nice to refresh your memory and where you came from and stuff like that. I really think you're doing a great job as a glamping guy, Chris, and I can't wait to see who's coming up next.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. We'll hope to see you next time.
Yeah, you take care.
Well, that was fun, wasn't it? You can find out more about Chris and Winnie Jeub's operation at monumentglamping.com. They have a Facebook and Instagram page too, so go and check them out. And I will warn you, this is probably the most edited video that I will put out for my podcast. It took a tremendous amount of time to go back and forth interviewing myself. The other podcasts are not that way. The next couple of guests I'll be interviewing is Laura Jimenez, who is just finishing up a glamping operation out in Maryland, and the infamous Derry Green, who has been on television and everything with the Secret Garden Glamping out in the UK. I have personally learned so much from these people. I'm already gleaning from their wisdom and expertise, and I've been doing this for 5 years, which is exactly what the Glamping Guy podcast is supposed to do. Question: do you think you would like to be interviewed on the Glamping Guy podcast? I mean, do you have private property that you've got an ADU on your property and you're renting it out? I would love to hear from you. Send an email to chris@glampingguy.com and we'll get the conversation started. Look, we are working in an extremely exciting but scary world of glamping. It's new, it's innovative. We can make a lot of mistakes on our own, or we can correct our mistakes very quickly working together. No man is an island. Please get a hold of me and get on my podcast. I think we all could learn from you. And while you're at it, subscribe to glampingguy.com because I've got classes and other things. I house this podcast there, so we'll keep in touch as we venture into this wonderful world of glamping together. And as they say on every single podcast I've ever listened to, go to Apple and YouTube and Spotify and all those places that this is where this is at, and like and comment about how much you appreciate it. It'll help me get high up in that algorithm and help other landowners build safe, legal, and profitable glamping operations on their private property. I hope to see you next time. I'm Chris Jeub, the Glamping Guy, signing off. Big brown bear, blue bowl, beautiful baboon, blowing bubbles, biking backwards, bump, black bugs, banana boxes.
Banana boxes? Oh no, falling down!